What's up, ladies and gentlemen? It's your boy Joey Work, Run Pure Bets, back again. Another Friday. You know what that means? I got another UFC fighter with me. This week we got Kyle the Monster Nelson. What's going on, Kyle?
Hey, not a whole lot. Just training hard and waiting for word on the next fight.
Awesome. That's good to hear. All right, so let's start right up here. First off, I just want to say thank you for taking your time. I know you're a busy guy and whatnot, but I really appreciate you taking some time out today to chop it up with us, and the followers definitely appreciate it as well.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks a lot for having me on.
Absolutely. All right, so first question is, I'm always interested to see how a fighter gets into MMA. So what was the original reason, and how did you originally get into the fighting world?
So I started with Rocky when I was really young. I saw Rocky for the first time, and I wanted to be a boxer. I never really heard of the UFC or mixed martial arts until I was like 14 years old. I started looking for a boxing gym because I wanted to get a little more serious about becoming a boxer. And as soon as I found a kickboxing slash jujitsu gym and started training, then the first season of The Ultimate Fighter came out, and then I was introduced to mixed martial arts, which is basically what I was already doing. So I just stuck with that.
That's awesome. All right, so I know you've been fighting for a while. I'm sure you worked really hard to get to this, the highest stage of them all in the UFC. So what went through your mind when you finally got that UFC call? You there, Kyle? You got me?
Oh, I think I lost you there for a second.
Okay, so I was just saying, basically, when you worked really hard to get to the UFC, what was it like when you finally got that call to the UFC?
I mean, it was super exciting. We got the call. It was on like 3 days' notice or something like that, and at a heavier weight class than I was used to competing at. But I mean, when the UFC calls, you don't say no. So super excited, and then it was really just into training like a fight week mode because we had to travel, we had to get a bunch of medicals and stuff done, had to sign a bunch of contracts. So it was kind of all a blur as soon as we got the phone call.
I hear you. All right, so obviously, let's go back to your first win in the UFC. Very impressive first round stoppage of Polo Reyes. Obviously, a long time coming. So, what was it like finally get your hand raised in the UFC octagon?
It was awesome. I the first couple fights. I mean, the first fight in the UFC was super short notice. I didn't really have an idea who I was fighting. With Diego Ferreira, but I just kind of went in and fought, and I thought I did well, but unfortunately, I mean, not really being in a training camp and in great shape and fighting up a weight class kind of caught up with me, in the second round. But then we prepared really well for my second opponent with Matt Sales, and I think just we changed so much for that training camp. We went to Vegas, we did so many different things that I don't think it really transitioned well into the fight. So it wasn't until my third fight in the UFC where we kind of went back to what we were doing before the UFC and just stuck with my old school, kind of training camp, and that's when everything really came together. So it was exciting to get into the octagon and actually showcase some of my skills and what I'm able to do, when I have a full training camp and everything kind of lines up well.
Yeah, that's great. That's really cool to hear. So, obviously, your guy's been busy. Do you have a return date, target return date, even a fighter in mind you like to fight next?
So my manager is actually talking to the UFC right now, and I mean I'm ready to go anytime. We're going to be moving up to 155 now. I
Okay.
did the majority of my career at 145, but I know now as I'm getting older, I'm 29 now. I've continued to add on muscle and stuff over my career, so now I think we're just getting a little too heavy. We got a little too much muscle for 145, so we're going to move up to 155, and yeah, just waiting for my manager to sort the new contract and everything out with the UFC, and then hopefully try and get a fight, in May or June.
Awesome. Well, we'll be rooting for you, that's for sure. So a little fun question I ask every fighter is how they got their nickname come about. So, I mean, the Monster, pretty cool nickname. How'd that come about?
Yeah, I mean, coming from a small town, it was just I always had to travel for training, and so I would always drive, an hour this way or an hour that. It's something, you'd finish training and everybody be exhausted, hanging out on the mats. And it was just something people always said, that always like, oh man, you're a monster, or, you know, you're a machine. But monster always seemed to be the thing that kept coming up when, I think people would see me and maybe underestimate me a little bit. And then once they trained with me and they felt some of my strength and some of my skill, and then, I would just kind of hit them that, whoa, you're a monster.
Sweet.
And so it kind of
I
stuck.
know you're from Canada. Any extra motivation being from Canada? George, obviously, there's a couple of good fighters out of Canada. George St. Pierre, the name. So is there extra motivation just being from there?
I wouldn't say extra motivation. I mean, it is interesting right now. Obviously, we had George St. Pierre, who was a huge star in the UFC, and right now, we've got a bunch of UFC fighters in the a bunch of Canadian fighters in the UFC, but nobody's really kind of stepped up and kind of taken the same kind of star power that George had. So I mean, moving up to 155, I think I'm the guy to do that. I think with my power and my exciting fighting style, hopefully I'll be able to take that and be the Canadian UFC fighter.
Let's go. That pumped me up. All right. So if it's all right with you, we'll run through your thoughts on the three main fights for UFC 260. I see you do post some pics on social media, so you should be pretty good at this.
Yep.
So the first one we got is Thomas Almeida showing OMalley. Almeida gets back in there after losing 4 of his last 5, but the big names, including Cody Garbrandt, Jimmy Rivera, Rob Font. He was on a 4-fight win streak before that and has finished 17 of his 22 wins by knockout. Sugar Sean O'Reilly gets back in there after his first professional loss to Marlon Vera. He's clearly hurt his ankle in that fight, wondering if Almeida goes after it in this fight. OMalley does have a 4-inch height advantage, 3-inch reach advantage here, and finished 9 of his 12 pro fights with 7 by knockout. What do you think about these two featherweights?
So the big thing with Sean O'Malley is obviously his leg. I don't know what the deal is. In his last fight, he lost because of it. And then in one of his previous fights before that, he had a really big issue with it. And his opponent, just really didn't take advantage of it. It seemed like Sean couldn't really stand up, so his opponent followed him to the ground. And it seemed like if he just stood up, that the ref would have called the fight. So I don't know what's going on. There's something wrong with his legs. They seem to get injured pretty easily. So I'm thinking Thomas Almeida is going to take advantage of that. So I would have to put my money on Almeida. I mean, if I was going in there, I'd be throwing hard leg kicks, hard calf kicks, and just moving around and seeing what happens. I think we've seen O'Malley kind of mentally break, as far as when it comes to whatever happens with his legs. So it's hard for me to put a whole lot of faith or to put any money on him. So definitely going with Almeida in this one.
Okay, great breakdown there. All right, so next fight we got is the co-main, Tyron Woodley versus Vicente Luque. Tyron's back in there after 3 consecutive losses, but to arguably the top 3 fighters in this weight class. He's fought the murderer's row of fighters, including the champ, Kamaru Usman, Gilbert Burns, Colby Covington, Darren Till, Stephen Thompson, just to name a few. Almost all of them went to decision and were 5-round fights. This will be Woodley's first 3-round fight since 2015 fight versus Kelvin Gastelum. As for Luque, he gets back in there after winning 4 of 5 over Mike Perry, Nico Price, and Randy Brown, with the decision loss to Stephen Thompson in there. A fight in which he looked pretty good in. He is 12-2 in the UFC with all but 1 win via finish. In his 20 pro fights, he has finished 18 of them, 11 by knockout, 7 by sub. I'm interested to see if he can finish the vet in Woodley here in only 3 rounds. What do you think about the co-main?
Yeah, I definitely think Vincent is going to win. I think that just the question is he going to be able to finish Woodley and really put on a showcase? And Woodley's last bunch of fights, I just haven't seen any urgency, even will or desire to really win the fight. He just kind of shows up and coasts through it, and he doesn't take too much damage. But I just don't see any intensity or anything like that in his eyes. So I just don't see him showing up and being aggressive and attacking and winning. I think we'll see the same thing out of Woodley. I think he'll just kind of coast, and it'll probably be a decision. But yeah, I think it's a great opportunity for Vincent to step up and really, especially with the three rounds, he can really step it up and and put a lot of pressure on Woodley and see if he can get him out of there, and he doesn't have to worry about the fourth and fifth round. Doesn't have to worry about gassing so much, so he can pour it on him a little bit more and see if he can finish Woodley.
Sweet. Yeah, another great breakdown. So on to the main event, Stipe Miocic, Francis Ngannou. Stipe, arguably the greatest heavyweight of all time. He's fought his last 3 fights against DC, lost the first one, then beat him the next 2. He gets a rematch with Francis 3 years later. As we know, Stipe has a good chin. He did get clipped early in that fight, the first fight versus Francis, but he powered through and eventually won a 5-round decision. Francis came in on the scale today, 30 pounds heavier than Stipe. He's on a 4-fight win streak, all via finish in the first round. The longest of any of those fights was 1 minute and 11 seconds. I think Stipe has the cardio advantage, and Francis will need to finish him in the first round, possibly the second round, to be named the new heavyweight champ. What do you think about the main event?
Yeah, so I think kind of the same thing. I think, Ngannou's only hope is kind of the first round and a half. Again, with his power and stuff. Now, he carries power, I think, through the whole fight, and he could technically knock Stipe out in the later rounds because I think he always carries power. It's just I think we're going to see, pretty similar to their first fight where Stipe is going to move around. He's gonna really wrestle Ngannou, put him against the fence, take him down, really grind him out. And I think with that we'll see Francis's cardio decline a little bit. But again, I don't think we'll see him, throwing a whole lot of output. I think he'll have little bursts and stuff and try and throw some power and see if he can catch Stipe. But a lot of people are talking about the improvements that Francis has made, but we really haven't seen that, right? Because of his short amount of fight time, we haven't seen if he's improved on his wrestling or, even in his last fight against Rosenstruck, the technique didn't look amazing. He kind of stormed forward and threw a bunch of power, which was impressive, but it didn't look like he was technically better than we've seen him before in other fights. So I think there's still a lot of unanswered questions about Ngannou that if this fight does go a little bit longer, I think will get answered. But definitely, Stipe is Stipe, and he's great all around, good cardio and stuff. There isn't really any weaknesses that I see other than obviously, if anybody gets hit by Francis, they're going out, but Stipe's shown that he can kind of be evasive and stuff like that and avoid that power. So I think we'll be looking at either a decision win for Stipe or a late round TKO by ground and pound by Stipe.
Wow, love it. I must say, Kyle, you're probably one of the best breaking down these fights that I've had so far. I've had over 50 fighters, and just listening to you and your breakdown of the fights, definitely one of the best I've had. So hats off for that. And again, thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. Is there anything you'd like to plug? Can you let our followers know where they could find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm on Facebook at Kyle the Monster Nelson, on Instagram at the Monster705 _UFC, and on Twitter at the _ Monster. And then a big shout out to my sponsors: Moose Delaney's, The Sport Lab, Sheath Underwear, Urban Beard, Cooler Bag, and everybody at Cooler Bag, obviously Claudia and Krista for helping out with my meals and stuff, and making sure that when I move up to 155, I'm going to be nice and strong and be able to knock a lot of people out.
Awesome. Well, we'll be rooting for you in the future. I'm going to be checking the news to wait to hear you get a new fight coming up, so we can promote it and whatnot. But thanks again for coming on the show. Really appreciate it, buddy.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me.
Absolutely. Have a good one. So shout out Kyle Nelson. What a cool ass dude. For real, he's definitely one of the best fighters we had breaking down the fights. That's for sure. So I really appreciate him coming on. We'll be looking for him in the future. I'll let you guys know when he announces the next fight, and we'll definitely be rooting for him. So hit the like button for me. I really appreciate it. Subscribe to the channel. If you aren't, go follow me on Twitter at Joey Work. Follow Rump Your Bets on Twitter. We will be back. I know Jay probably will be back tonight breaking down the main card, and there'll be a live show tomorrow where we go live for all the UFC fights. Good luck, everyone, on your bets this week, and enjoy the fights. I'm out. Peace.